Hey guys, Metal Viking 82 here, back to show some more plunder that I've acquired over the last little while. Got a nice little stack of 2024 releases to go over with you today. Trying my best to keep up on the 2024 releases, because this way, towards the end of the year when I want to build my list, I don't have to be trying to scramble through a huge stack of stuff that I haven't gotten around to. I'm trying to really dwindle it down. I will be interspersing some, uh, you know, older releases, non-2024 releases and stuff. But yeah, right now I'm just kind of trying to focus on those as much as I can. And we're going to kick things off with an absolutely killer demo. Definitely one of my favorites of the year. And that is Purulency with Transcendent Unveiling of Dimensions. Death metal out of Kingsport, Tennessee. Been around since 2018. This is their debut demo. Originally put out by Caligari on tape, which is how I previously got it. But then I think it was Melanie over at Melanie Loves Death Metal that showed that there was a CD version, and I was able to track down a copy. The CD version was put out by Pulverized Records. I don't remember if I said it, though. The tape was only limited to 150 copies. But man, this thing is such a banger of a demo. Thick sounding bass just rumbles away through this entire thing, lending the backbone to the guitars, along with some really solid drum work from Alex DePew, who does some really nice double bass and at times some really solid blast beats. There's not as many blast beats as you would think there would be, but when he does do them, they are really, really good. Definitely has a noticeable doomier feel to it than, even though this is considered kind of standard death metal, I feel like there's a lot more doomy aspects to this band's sound. It does have its share of, those mid-pace chugs and grooves and some really killer solos as well. But there's a lot of riffs that are very slow and crushy, even going off a Tales from the Thousand Lakes era Amorphous vibe at times. The low cavernous growls that, top everything off on here, especially make you, feel like this is more towards doom death than just straight up death metal. But yeah, absolutely killer demo. Definitely one of my favorites of the year, and most likely going to end up being on my year-end list. This one probably going to end up being on there as well. I mean, I'm finding a lot of killer shit that's coming out, especially here lately. But this is Cavern Womb with Stages of Infinity. Really cool artwork there. Death metal out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Been around since 2019. This is their debut EP put out by Rotted Life Records. And this is just basically just under 25 minutes of just nasty, old school death metal. The thick bass, really lays down a solid backbone. It has a nice dirty feeling tone to it. The drums are solid overall with some nice patterns, rolls, and fills. I love the double bass and the blast beats. There are a few moments though where the snare kind of gets slightly lost during some of the blast beats, but that doesn't happen too often that it becomes a major distraction or anything. I love the subtle use of the keyboards on this EP, as they really help to create a nice atmosphere when they're utilized without being too overpowering or too over the top. Probably my favorite use of this comes in track number 4, the closing track, A Vessel for the Esoteric. Right about the 440 mark during this really heavy, doomy section, the keyboards come in. I just love how that sounds at that particular moment. The dirty, crunchy guitars are what really drive this EP, though. At times they're thrashy. They're mostly mid to fast paced with some nice headbangable grooves, but with some of those slower, heavier, doomy sections as well. Nice solos that at times kind of have a bit of a Chuck Schuldiner-esque feel to them, and even some dissonance to their sound. The second track on here, Amber Scourge, that has a great example of both kinds of solos. It's kind of, Chuck Schuldiner-esque and very dissonant sounding at the same time. Then when you get into track number 3, Cryopreserved, that probably has my favorite solo on this entire EP at about the 326 mark. It's so emotive. When you mix it with those subtle keys and everything, it just gives off a lot of emotion, and I really dug that. Then the closing track, going back to it, A Vessel for the Esoteric. I loved the very ethereal opening riff to this song. It's very latter era death sounding to me, and I also really like that groove about 36 seconds into the song, with just the bass and the drums going. Just a really solid groove there. Really gets the head moving. Topping it off are these powerful lower register growls, at times with a bit of a cavernous feel to them as well. Yeah, and this band also has a split with Noxus that I actually just ordered yesterday. But yeah, absolutely killer debut EP from this band. I cannot wait to hear their material on that split with Noxus. So yeah, really a band you definitely need to be keeping your eyes on. Next up, Sarcophagus with Remnants. Stoner doom, or not stoner doom, stoner death metal, at least according to the archives. I don't hear too much in the way of stoner elements on here. Definitely more towards the death metal side of things. But these guys are out of Cleveland, Ohio. Not exactly sure when they formed because there was no formation date on there. This actually features current and former members of Noxus, who I was just talking about, as well as Necroveg, Himdale, among others. This is the band's first EP overall, put out by Rotted Life. Their previous full length came out on Magastomp in 2021, though I think that one only had a tape release. I could be wrong, but I've known about this band for some time. I believe it's the classy one himself, Lonnie, actually talked about this band quite a bit, and I just finally now got around to checking this band out, and I'm really, really glad that I did. The thick-toned bass on here in general sits a little bit lower in the mix. It's still easily heard. It's not as high up as I would normally like it, but I still thought it worked well for this band's sound. It does come out, a little bit more in the mix in certain spots. Really solid drumming with some nice patterns, rolls, and fills. I love the double bass and the blast beats on here. And at times during the double bass parts, he actually the kick sounds kind of reminded me a little bit of Dave Lombardo, to be honest. Yeah, fast-paced, almost kind of tremolo-picked riffs alternate with the more mid-paced gallops and grooves, along with some nice heavy chugs throughout this entire album, or EP, I should say. It's 7 tracks, so it kind of makes me think it's more of an album, but it's considered an EP. And then Nate Faye's vocals are these, powerful mid-range growls, kind of Glenn Benton-esque at times, and he even does a little bit lower style growls and spots. But yeah, very impressed with this EP. I definitely want to track down a copy of their debut. Oh, this one is definitely one of my all-time favorites of this entire stack. This is one of those bands that I found out while scrolling through Facebook one day, and I'm in so many different groups on there that it just kind of pops up in my feed, and somebody was talking about this band and this album, and I saw the artwork, and I was like, damn, that looks cool, and I checked it out, and really impressed, and the only place I could seem to find to buy it was actually from the band themselves. But this is Resurge with Resurge from Underneath. And these guys are a death metal band out of Portugal, been around since 2020. This is their debut full-length album put out by Miasma Records. Yeah, I actually, like I said, I ordered this directly from the band, along with their debut EP, which I will be showing in another update at some point. And it actually got here rather quickly, so I was really surprised. I don't order from overseas too much because I never know how quickly it's going to get here, or like in the case of a CD I'm waiting on, it gets lost and the band has to send me another one. But yeah, this actually showed up rather quickly, and I was very impressed with that. But yeah, the bass really jumped out to me when I started listening to this. It's thick and twangy, very easily heard throughout this entire thing. Really great production to the drums on here. Lots of solid double bass and blast beats, and he really hits with some authority on here. When you get into track number 3, Blame It On You, I love this section. It's about 2:48 into the song where it's just the bass and the drums for just a moment kind of doing their own little thing, and it sounds just really cool to me. Just great guitar work, though, over this entire album. They're mid to fast paced with lots of heavy, chuggy riffs and some grooves and just really great solos. They utilize the whammy bar at times, and they utilize it really well. A few of the riffs actually give off slight death vibes, too. A lot of death mentioned in this update, I just noticed. And then the vocals on here are these powerful lower register growls, which mixed with these very Martin Van Drunen-ish style of vocals, and at times they even layer the two for certain spots, and it sounds absolutely cool, killer in my opinion. Yeah, definitely a great discovery for me, and another one that is probably going to end up being on my year-end list. But we'll see, because, that's still a little ways away. Excuse me. Next up, Fisted with Whore on a Stick. Lovely title there, isn't it? Yeah, brutal death metal out of Texas, been around since 2022. This actually features former members of bands such as Images of Violence, Architectural Genocide, Desecrate the Faith, among others. But this is their debut demo put out by Imminent Sounds, and this is just pretty much, you know, a little over 9 minutes of just dirty, old school style brutal death metal with not much let up. I mean, when one song ends, you know, there's no huge, you know, silent building intro or anything for the next one. The next one just basically starts kicking your ass right away. I mean, there's still a little bit of a break between the songs, so you can kind of tell when one track ends and one starts. But yeah, you know, they didn't want to make it a huge jumbled mess. But other than that, there's not a whole lot of let up when you start listening to this little demo. Yeah, the thick, dirty sounding bass on here, though, really gives a lot of heft to these songs. And in general, you can actually pick it out while listening to this. Despite it being a little bit lower in the mix, though, it does kind of cut through a bit more here in spots, such as in the second track, the title track, Whore on a Stick at about 208. The drums are solid overall with a good snap to the snare. I love the kick drum sound on here especially. Lots of nice double bass and blast beats all over this demo. The guitars are crunchy and really, you know, unpolished sounding, alternating between the fast, almost tremolo picked riffs and the slower chugs and mid-pace, you know, chuggy grooves. Jay Miller's vocals on here are these really powerful low-end growls that really bring to mind Chris Barnes in his prime on those early Cannibal Corpse albums. But yeah, really solid debut from this band. Definitely one I'm going to be keeping my eyes on in the future. Excuse me. Next up, Darkness Everywhere, To Conquer Eternal Damnation. Kind of switching gears here. This is more melodic death metal out of Oakland, California. Been around since 2020. Features current and former members of Light This City. And I really dug this band's debut, so I was really excited for this album to come out. And I actually forgot that I had pre-ordered it, so when it showed up, I was like, oh yeah, I did order that, didn't I? But yeah, I loved the bass on this album, though. It's right up in the mix, yet not overpowering or anything. It's got a nice, thick, twangy tone to it. The drum production is really solid on here with a good snap to the snare. Really nice patterns, rolls, and fills, and lots of really cool double bass and blast beats on here. Great guitar work as well, and you can't help but think of bands like, you know, Older In Flames, Dark Tranquility, The Black Dahlia Murder, among others, while you're listening to this album. They're mid to fast paced, perfectly balancing those melodic moments with the, you know, heavier, darker parts. Really great solos on here, and you can even get some acoustic sections popping up at times. Really good headbangable grooves, and at times these kind of almost heavy metal, power metal-esque gallops as well. Probably my favorite track on here, though, is track number 5, A Dreaded Eclipse, because it's just this, you know, all acoustic instrumental that serves as a really nice, you know, little break in the action. And I love the dual guitars with the different sounding riffs with these, you know, kind of faint strings. Maybe it's like a violin or something. It's very faint playing in the background. And then it does this really smooth transaction into track number 6, Starving Eyes, with its really heavy opening that has this just nasty sounding guitar riff and that little twangy bass just going to town. Absolutely loved it. And then, of course, Ben Murray's vocals are just on top form here, utilizing those, you know, killer, throat-shredding, deathly shouts that are kind of standard fare for melodic death metal. But yeah, so far this band has not put out a bad release, and I would definitely recommend checking them out. Excuse me. Alrighty here, get my page a little flatter so I can actually read here when I need to. Next up, Dissected with Golden Hues of Decay. Death metal out of Tiffin, Ohio. Not exactly sure when this band formed. I actually did a review of this, so if you want my full thoughts on it, go check out that review. But yeah, this is the band's debut full-length album put out by Life After Death on tape, limited to 100 copies, and then Under the Surface put out the CD edition, which I was really excited that it's got a CD pressing. Yeah, and this is just essentially just killer Ohio death metal with super thick bass that's easily heard, lending a lot of heft to this album. Lots of great blast beats and double bass all over this thing. Thick, dirty sounding guitars that are, you know, mid to fast paced with some pinch harmonics at times, throwing in these slower chug sections and the occasional deathcore-ish breakdown. Vocalist Zach Ferris, who actually splits his time between Dissected and now he's also the vocalist of Limb Splitter. He uses a lot of great vocal variety on here, and the transitions that he does between the styles is really smooth and really easy. Doesn't sound awkward at all. He does these powerful mid-range growls that are very Glenn Benton-esque at times, to these maniacal screams and retches. Definitely shouts and even the lower, almost guttural-sounding vocals. Of course, my favorite part came in the track number 5, Rot, when it has a clip from the legendary Dusty Rhodes saying, "I'll put the big sleep on you, baby." As soon as that came in, I was just like, that is fucking awesome, because Dusty Rhodes is an absolute legend. So yeah, go check out Dissected. Absolutely killer album. And then finally, this is probably one of my all-time favorites that I've listened to this year. I swear to God, this gets better and better every time I listen to this. Definitely going to make it on my year-end list, but this is the new Cognitive with Abhorrence. Technical death metal / deathcore out of Jobstown, New Jersey. Been around since 2011. This is their 5th full-length pull out by Metal Blade Records. The bass definitely stands out right away, as it's just right up in the mix, thick and twangy with that really techie feel to it. Powerful sounding drum production on this thing. Really sick blast beats and double bass. The double bass at times gets actually really super fast, which I like. It doesn't sound, you know, clicky or anything like that either. I love the guitar work on here. You know, they're thick and crunchy and just fast-paced, alternating with the more chuggy style sections, such as in track number 7, Containment Breach, at about 58 seconds in. And I love the double bass underneath that section as well. Sounds really awesome. And then you got these, you know, nice headbangable grooves as well. Really great solos all over this album that could be kind of melodic at times, and sometimes really melodic, I have to say, such as track number 4, Ivory Tower, track number 8, Rorschach, that melodic sounding solo about 3 minutes in. Oh, so good. Though one of my favorite parts, and probably I think one of my favorite songs on this album, comes in as track number 5, As the Light Fades. After about 3 minutes of just, you know, the fast-paced riffing, the blistering double bass, there's this nice melodic break in the song with an amazing guitar solo. It's kind of a dual guitar solo that comes in at about 3:24, with one of the guitars eventually kind of dropping off. And then, you know, at the end, you get this fading, slow-picked riff. It's like, ding, and it resonates as it's fading away, and I just really love the sound of that. Absolutely killer song. Vocalist Shane Jost really delivers a hell of a performance on here with some really great variety. For the most part, he uses a very powerful mid-range growl and roar, but he also utilizes, you know, shouts, lower end growls, these really maniacal screams that at times bring to mind Trevor Sternad, may he rest in power, and even these cleaner vocals that certainly are very reminiscent of Travis Ryan from Cattle Decap at times. But yeah, this album is just an absolute banger. Definitely one of my most highly recommended ones, because like I said, this gets better and better every time I listen to it. So yeah, go check this out. And that is gonna do it. Got more coming. I got a lot of more 2024 releases, but like I said, I'm also going to be throwing in some, you know, older releases as well, because I got a bunch of that I need to go over, and I'm going to try to knock out some more reviews before too long. And yeah, that is going to do it. Thank you guys so much for watching and subscribing, and until next time, stay brutal.